All right, y'all. Y'all see the title? Y'all see the shirt? Y'all see the ring? Let's talk about it. Lanterns trailer dropped. I don't even know how long ago. I've been waiting for it all day. I went on YouTube. Boom, there it was. Let's talk about it, bro. Because there's a lot to talk about, and I'm really excited. As you can tell, I brought out the shirt, like I said. I brought out the ring. Okay, let's talk. Okay, trailer opens up, and it's John. Looks like it's him and Hal. Looks like they're sleeping in a hotel or a motel or whatever, right? And Hal gets a bucket of water, throws it on him. He's like, time to wake up, right? He gives him the ring. He's like, okay, just fly. He's like, just fly, right? So John puts on the ring. I'm sorry, I'm excited. There's some stuff in the trailer that anyways, okay, so he tells him to fly, right? He doesn't fly. The ring lights up and he creates a construct of a bird. And Hal's like, what is that? The bird flies down, lands on his shoulder, but it also cuts back and forth to John talking to, I'm not sure who her character is, but this one lady about she's like, you're a space cop. And he's like, yeah, well, something like that. And she's like, well, she's just like the backup quarterback or whatever, right? Camera switches over to, I think, what's like the landscape of whatever town they're in. I forget the name of the town. God, I'm so excited right now. Bro, okay, so in the trailer, I just want to get out of the way first. In the trailer, bro, we see so many, not so many, but bro, I'm just loving the constructs, bro. Like the constructs in the DCU are just like amazing. My mind's all over the place, but I don't know, they're just so creative with them. Like, we haven't gotten much live action wise for Green Lantern besides the Green Lantern movie, and what very little, if to none, what we got in the DCEU for Zack Snyder. But I'm just loving it, man. Anyways, I'm gonna cut to the biggest part of it. They talk about Manhunters. Okay, so John goes. Well, before that, Hal and John are at a football stadium and they're talking to one of the sheriff, and they're covering up bodies with sheets. And he's like, these victims are going to turn out to be aliens. She was like, oh, how do you know? Or something like that. He's like, no, I just got a feeling. She like mocks him, like, oh, he's got a feeling or whatever, right? So we finally find out what the main function and what is the main case of this show, and it's the Manhunters. Now, they immediately said that. I immediately freaked out because I won't say the Manhunters are a deep cut from Green Lantern, but they definitely, if you know the Manhunters, you kind of know some stuff. Not everybody who knows Green Lantern, just off seeing Green Lantern knows about the Manhunters. Anyways, so before I get into the origins of the Manhunters, the trailer kind of had me confused because John goes to Hal and he's like, what do you know about Manhunters? And then Hal's like, where'd you hear that name from, or something like that? And he says, the Manhunters are some of the most dangerous beings ever in the universe, right? And then it cuts to this dude talking about how they can change it to anyone, and then this person in front of this woman literally shifts into what I presume is the Manhunter, and they kind of have white skin, it looks, and then they have a red uniform, and then they have an X on their uniform. So that had me confused because there's two types of Manhunters in the DC universe. You got the Green Lantern Manhunters, which were they're pretty much weapons. They're robots. They were the first invention of the Guardians of the Universe, the ones that created the Green Lantern Corps. So before the Green Lantern Corps, you had the Manhunters, right? That's where you get that quote, no one escapes the Manhunters. It comes from them. Now, the thing about the Manhunters is that the reason why they're not around anymore is because they went AWOL. They went AWOL and they were going around just killing people. That's actually how we get Atrocitus and the Red Lanterns. The Manhunters go to Sector 666, which is where Atrocitus is from, to the planet Ryu, I think it's pronounced, and they slaughter not only his whole sector, but of course his family as well. And that leads him going down to the path of creating the Red Lanterns and, so on and so forth, right? So that could be a segue into us getting the Red Lanterns in the DCU, right? Now, at first, I wasn't so sure if that red beam of energy coming from the sky was actually a Red Lantern. I was kind of dismissive, I don't think it's a Red Lantern, but who honestly knows? Because the Manhunters are really, really old. Yes, this is one of the... let me see. I think the Lantern show is going to take place... Actually, I don't know when it takes place. I don't know if it's after or before Superman, but even if it is before Superman, it really doesn't matter because the Manhunters came before the Green Lantern Corps, so they're a hell of a lot older than pretty much anybody on Earth, like hero wise, like the heroes of Earth. But the reason why I say I'm confused is because there's a second term for the Manhunters, and that belongs to the Martians. And I say I'm confused because the dude in the trailer who's telling John, I assume it's John, about the Manhunters, says they can shapeshift into anybody. And then earlier in the trailer, Hal says, well, these victims are going to end up being aliens. And it's like, okay, well, are they using the Green Lantern Manhunters or the Martian Manhunters? Because Martian Manhunter isn't just the name of John Jones, like his superhero name. That is what he was on Mars before Mars was not destroyed, but before the civilization of the Martians was pretty much destroyed. The Green Martians, that really is. He was a Manhunter, which was like this kind of like police force on his planet. They were called the Manhunters, which is why he adopted the name Martian Manhunter. So maybe they're using them, or maybe they're like mixing them together. I would assume they're mixing them together because it's like you can't really be like use the Manhunters and it not be like some form of the Green Lantern, Manhunters. But not only that too, but like I said, when the Manhunter shifted into, I guess it's its alien form, its skin was white. Now I don't know how many of you know, but there isn't just the Green Martians on Mars, or at least there wasn't just the Green Martians on Mars. There was the White Martians and the Green Martians. The White Martians were the ones that pretty much exterminated the race of the Green Martians. They're a very war-torn like species of Martians. The Green Martians are more kind of docile, and depending on kind of what origin it is, they went to war with each other, or the White Martians just kind of like dominate over the Green Martians. That's also where you get Miss Martian from Young Justice. She was actually a White Martian, but disguised herself as a Green Martian, so she gained the trust of John Jones, and it's a whole thing, or it was a whole thing. And eventually, it got revealed. But the alien is white skinned, so I'm wondering if maybe it's a White Martian. But then it's like, damn, they're gonna do White Martians before Martian Manhunter. But that's if they're doing the Martian Manhunters. It's confusing, but it was cool nonetheless. So that was happening. Then another part in the trailer, Guy Gardner comes to Hal. He's like, he's going to send an army to destroy you, and that's when we get the red beam. Now I don't know who he's talking about. I'm completely oblivious to who he's talking about. Cause I don't know if anyone knows. There's definitely guesses out there. One guess could be Atrocitus, because right when he says that, a red beam of energy does hit the ground on the town, so that definitely could be Atrocitus for sure. Not only that too, but then I think her character, I forget her name of her character. Actually, I don't think we know the name of her character. There's this girl that talks to John. She's like, "How do you feel about Jordan?" or something like that, and he's like, "Well, he's just kind of keeping like his place warm for me, because pretty much he's gonna replace Hal Jordan." And I think it might be Carol Ferris. I don't really know. I haven't seen anything. I forget the actress's name, but I don't think there's been anything to say that is Carol Ferris's actor. That is going to be the actress who's going to portray Carol Ferris. But I'm assuming it might be, but we'll have to wait and see. But as she's saying that, Hal is flying off to what I assume is the prison planet that we see where they're keeping Sinestro, and he pulls up on Sinestro, and we actually get to see him now. And he's like, Sinestro, and we see him, and man, Sinestro looks amazing, bro. I love the mustache they gave him. The pink looks good for his skin. His pointed ears. He sounds amazing. I love it. But he talks to Jordan. He's like, you don't think. What does he say? He says something like, basically trying to tell him like this dude's your replacement. And then Hal kind of mentions like, yeah, like he's my replacement. Now I want to talk about what's going on with Sinestro, because I did see something on Twitter saying that the Guardians are like nervous or like weary of like what Hal received from Sinestro. Now that was just like a tweet I saw somewhere, and I'm like, received from Sinestro, and I'm like, well, what did he give him? My first thought pretty much was that he gave him a Yellow Lantern ring. And of course, the reason why for that is because obviously the Sinestro Corps created the Yellow Lanterns after he was stripped of his ring and his title as a Green Lantern. Now, I do want to talk about that, because there have been a lot of talks that this Lantern show is going to set up the first major event in the DCU, and that's going to be the Blackest Night event. Now, I can explain the Blackest Night event real quick, but I actually might end up doing a separate video on it, because there's a lot that goes into it. But before I get to that, first, I want to talk about, if it is a Yellow Lantern ring, how many Yellow Lanterns are really out there? Because, given the age that Hal and Sinestro are at, I would think that the Sinestro Corps would already pretty much be a thing, and they're like kind of running around, especially if the theories about Atrocitus already being a thing, and some of his yellow lanterns, some of his red lanterns, I would already kind of think, hey, maybe they're kind of already running around. But if they're not, this could be first segueing into the Sinestro Corps War and then Blackest Night, or then maybe a little bit, maybe in between. I think a version of the War of Light. No, these three events right here, Sinestro Corps War, and then I think it was I think War of Light came before or came after, and then it was Blackest Night. Anyways, these three events, well, two minus Blackest Night, led into Blackest Night. So the Sinestro Corps War was pretty much where the Green Lanterns went to war with the Sinestro Corps. But the reason why I'm saying I think it might have came before War of Light, or maybe I'm confusing myself, but I think it came before because I think there were a couple other Lantern Corps that were active during that time. I can't all the way remember. It's been a minute since I've read the War of Light and Sinestro Corps, all that. Anyways, the War of Light was an event basically that brought together every Lantern Corps, so all 9 of them, kind of, well, I guess really not all 9 of them, because minus the whites and the blacks, right? The White Lantern Corps and the Black Lantern Corps. It was a war basically where all the Lantern Corps fought each other, and the whole purpose of them fighting each other was to get used to each other, to get used to their powers, what they can do, what they can't do, their limits, all of that. So when eventually it got to the Blackest Night, then they could team up and fight together and, defeat the Black Lanterns. That was the War of Light. Now, the Blackest Night was a ancient prophecy in the Book of Oa. But the thing about that is that the Guardians didn't really believe in the Blackest Night. They kind of just thought it was kind of just this prophecy that was just kind of made up, that was never going to happen, right? So it was in the Book of Oa, right? Their book on their planet. But they just didn't kind of believe it. They just kind of thought it was like, oh, this, it's never going to happen. Anyways, the prophecy of the Blackest Night was that the entity known as Necron, who is the entity of death, not the actual death in DC, but the personification of death for the emotional spectrum. I'm not going to go into that because that's a whole different thing, and that it's long and it kind of gets confusing. Anyways, okay, so the prophecy was that Necron was going to raise the dead with his Black Lantern rings. Well, he was going to get a hand, which is William Hand, Black Hand, right? Kind of an old Green Lantern villain who killed himself, did a whole bunch of other things, got a Black Lantern ring, then, carried out the wishes of Necron, right? So he spread rings all across the universe and was rising people all across the universe with these Black Lantern rings, most notably dead heroes and dead villains at this point in time. So, of course, this was after Final Crisis and all of that. So we were getting Final Crisis or Infinite Crisis Superman and all types of shit. It was crazy, bro. But at heart, on a comic book side, in out of universe, in the real world, it was really meant for DC to kind of figure out, okay, who do they want to bring back and who do they really not want to bring back? Who gets received well when they get brought back as a Black Lantern, and who would we really want to keep? But in universe though, that was the end all be all for the Lantern Corps, right? That's why we had the War of Light, was so we could get everyone used to each other so they could fight together during the Blackest Night event. But we know the Blackest Night, of course, didn't happen with the emergence of the White Lantern and the Resurrected Justice League, and they defeated pretty much Necron. But I think, and that's the theories that people are saying online, that's what we're building to in the DCU. That's going to be the first major event, is the Blackest Night. We're going to get Sinestro Corps War, a version of War of Light, because we got to get all the other Lantern Corps, and then Blackest Night eventually. So I'm really excited for that because the Green Lantern mythos is one of my favorite parts and aspects of the DC universe. I love it. I love it so much. I could talk about it for hours. What else about the trailer? Oh yeah, we also get to see Guy Gardner, like I mentioned, because he tells John or Hal about, he's going to send a whole army to get you. We saw him in the other teaser where he was at somebody's cell. I can't remember. I don't know whose it was. But he's in here, and Hal seems like Gardner seems like he's pretty scared. Not sure who he's talking about. Again, like I said, the theories are, what I've seen, that some of them is it's Atrocitus. I guess we'll have to see when the show comes out. Like I said, the constructs, bro, dude, they look amazing. I love it. We get a shot of Hal and it looks like Stewart on another planet with a skull. Like I said, we get that Martian Manhunter. I'm going to call it a Martian Manhunter because that's really what it looks like. The uniform is red and it has the X across the uniform just like John Jones' Martian Manhunter. So that's why I'm confused. Are we getting a mix of the Martian Manhunters and the Robot Manhunters like together, like mixed together, or like what are we doing? Because that's kind of what it seems like. Because they mentioned the Manhunters and then they mentioned shapeshifting, and the Robot Manhunters can't shapeshift. So that's why I'm just like, okay, well then, what Manhunters are we getting? So I don't know. I'm just all around really excited. We get a lot more green in this trailer. We get to see Hal in his suit and his ring, and it's more green. We get to get a shot of, well, I think it's John powering up his ring with the lantern. I'm just all around excited, bro. The first couple, like the first kind of teaser trailer, didn't have me all the way hooked. Not really because I didn't know what was going on. Just the color, you know, the green. It still looks a little brown or whatever, but there's a lot more green, man, and I'm really excited for it. I can't wait, bro. I love the Lantern mythos so much, dude. So I'm hoping this is gonna be good. I'm trying to hope I don't miss anything. I'm really excited. Like, I'm really pumped, man. But yeah, I touched on mainly what I want to talk about, the whole thing about what this could lead up to with the Manhunters or whatever. So yeah, let me know if you want me to see do a full video on the Blackest Night and the, you know, inner details of it and the inner workings of it or whatever. And yeah, catch you guys later and see you around.